Good morning and happy Monday here, April 1st, April Fool's Day. Welcome into SimWorld today, as I am every morning. I'm Marsh. Well, actually, I'm every morning. Yeah, every morning. I'm Marsh. Every Monday morning, I'm joined by B-Ron. B-Ron, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, man. Good morning, March. Happy April Fool's Day, all that stuff. There'll be no jokes told on the show today, at least from me, anyway. Maybe.
I
I
was,
don't
I
know. We'll
was
see. We'll
wondering
see.
if you had any pranks lined up for today.
I
No?
might. I
Oh,
haven't decided yet. We'll see.
nothing better than a on-the-whim prank. Plenty of
Yeah.
action to cover here on today's episode. We've got some SimWorld prep activity from the weekend. We're going to start in the association as we tend to here in the midst of it. And the big one over the weekend, the Rockets winning streak comes to a close at the hand of Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks last night. The Mavs take down a Houston team that had won 10 in a row, streaking their way up to be now a game and a half behind the Golden State Warriors for the 10 seed. This at the same time, Iran helps the Mavs out in moving up the ladder a little bit. They're seeding on their own. Bigger win or bigger loss here for Dallas or Houston?
I think it's a bigger loss for Houston just because they're, like you said, trying to get into that 10th seed spot. It is a bummer to always see a long win streak like that come to an end and to climb as high as they did. So to see it come to an end is a bummer for sure. So I do think it's a worse loss for Houston as of right now.
What's the worst lie? I'd agree with that in that the Golden State Warriors got a win last night. Hey, we find a way to bring it to them. But just because of that, now you're looking at Houston. It's more detrimental because of that combination. They do have a game against one another this Thursday, I believe. But winning streaks are always going to come to a close. Obviously, no surprise there, and it's always why the longer a winning streak goes, the more you tend to want to say, yeah, it's probably going to end eventually, just like the same could be said of the Pistons' losing streak. But I actually think this is a big help for Dallas. Dallas is trying to get above a really congested middle to bottom part of the Western Conference. The top three teams are all pretty much locked up. Oklahoma City, who we'll get to in a second, have changed it a little bit. But now you've got to contest with, if you're Dallas, you've got Phoenix, who's trying to rise up. You've got the Clippers, who have fallen back. The Kings have injuries. The Lakers, the Warriors. Unlikely that a team like Golden State would have made their way up, so you can rule that out of where Dallas sits. But the opportunity to get to the top four is incredibly valuable, not only to have home court in the opening round, but to avoid the play-in. And because of how tightly congested these teams are within that 5 through 9 range, let's go with, because like I said, Golden State I don't think is going to jump up into that. Avoiding that now is really important for Dallas. And this win went a long way in doing that. There's obviously not that many games left, so there's going to be a lot of jostling for those spots. But as hurtful as it is for Houston, I almost think they're playing with house money right now. This was probably where a lot of folks expected the Rockets to end up this season. Meanwhile, for Dallas, the clock continues to tick on a roster that's been revamped since the Western Conference Finals 2 seasons ago. And to get a win like that, I think is vital. Meanwhile, talk about a couple seasons ago, the Oklahoma City Thunder booked their first playoff trip since 2020. They got a big win over the Knicks, who have just been a hot and cold version of themselves. The Thunder, B-Ron, I'm curious your thoughts. To me, I don't know that I buy them 100% just yet as a legitimate contender, particularly when you look at their deficiencies, which is at the big man position, and the types of teams you'd expect them to have to go through, Minnesota and or Denver, to get out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, no, I don't think they are there ready just yet. But they do have, again, SGA there, and I do think that he's obviously going to be, the future for that team as far as the leader, the number one guy, whatever you want to say about that. But for them to clinch their first playoff spot since 2020 is a big deal, regardless. In that respect. So hats off to them for getting that win and locking that spot up.
What continues to be amazing to me that 2020 was 4 years ago. I know the obvious math there on the calendar, but I don't think the years 2020 through 2022 should count with everything that the world went through. But it's an impressive turnaround from a team that completely tore down and then rebuilt. 4 seasons is about the trajectory that you'd like to see. Now that got fast tracked by SGA already kind of being that guy, and then of course Chet Holmgren being much better than I think anybody expected him as a
Yeah.
rookie. He's been, I don't think people expect him to be bad, but he has been phenomenal this season. This team is really, really deep. I've said it before. I'm not sure if it was you or was somebody else, but they don't have that pre-playoff experience that I think is kind of
Hmm.
required for championship caliber teams. You look at the Grizzlies over the last couple seasons, last year not included, where they make the play-in, they push themselves with 5 games in the opening round. I think it was Denver at the time. Then they obviously have the jump up to number 2 the following season. You look at last 2 seasons, the Minnesota Timberwolves, that 5-game series. Well, we can joke about that being the hardest 5-game series in NBA history. That preempts their rise right now. The Thunder don't have that preemption just yet, and I think until that preemption comes, uh, it's just a different beast during the off season, or should it be during the playoffs.
Yeah, and
Switching gears, go ahead, close us out here.
I was saying, you mentioned 2020 feeling like it was, it was only 4 years ago, but it feels like it was so much longer than that. I'm still used to the Thunder having, Durant and Harden. That was years ago now at this point. So for them to be, again, competitive and in the playoffs now, like, it seems like it's so far away from where we are now.
Well,
That's
yeah,
all.
we're very far away from Oklahoma City having those 3 on their team.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of them are even close to OKC.
No.
Now we're moving over to the Jets, who went off and got another piece to their defense. They trade for Hassan Reddick from the Eagles, another departure from Philadelphia. But the Jets now, B-Ron, look like they might have a roster capable of contending.
Yeah, honestly, they do. I'm very surprised at how quickly this has all kind of come together between last season adding Aaron Rodgers, and then, of course, got injured and everything. That didn't really help him any. But he'll be healthy this season, hopefully anyway. Now they've added, tackle Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses. They've got Mike Weir, the receiver now. And the addition of Hassan Reddick on that defense, I think it's just going to make them even more dangerous. They swapped Reddick for Hop, whose first name escapes me at the moment. But they're looking real good. But part of me is still like, they're the Jets, if that makes sense.
I've always been a bit of a non-fan of but it's the insert team name, just because it's like, well, look, we can talk about the Jets from the 1990s, but that doesn't mean any part of that organization is still in effect today. I think the places where it makes sense to make that argument is like the Knicks, where they're still owned by James Dolan. But like when you've got complete turnover at some point, or the Browns with consistent ownership, it's just some point, they're going to turn it around eventually. It's more of an abnormality if they don't. Meanwhile, I think the Jets, their defense was really good. I think they addressed their offensive line challenges. That's what their biggest issue was. They got themselves a second offensive weapon that they needed at the edge. This is going to be a perfectly fine football team. I don't think that should be considered a hot take. Obviously, you can't predict injuries, and the injury to Aaron Rodgers at the start of last season was what turned that season into what it turned into. Truthfully, I think their best signing, though, is the addition of Tyrod Taylor as their backup quarterback, because you win 7 games with Zach Wilson last season with that football team.
Yeah.
I think that's a 10-win football team if you have a quarterback that's not Zach Wilson. And that does not mean that Aaron Rodgers is some 12-win quarterback. I think it's capable of it, but that football team is really good. They continue to add a lot of pieces for a division now that, what do we know what we're going to get out of Buffalo? They've had a lot of players depart. What are we going to get out of Miami, who fell flat and made very few acquisitions during the offseason? The Patriots are whatever they do with that number 3 pick, keeper trade, they're going to be in a bit of a rebuild themselves.
Right.
The Jets are, I wouldn't say by default, but they're the team that you look at and say, okay, they've been the most aggressive in acquiring talent that the other programs just simply haven't been. And so for that reason alone, to me, the East just looks a little bit deeper because of it. All right,
Yep.
let's swap over to SimWorld Prep, where the originators and Beasts of the East both have extended their winning streaks. OGs get to number 7 in a row. They beat a Lakeshore Drive team that prior to this 3-game losing streak had not lost consecutive games. The standings, they're trying to chase down Beasts of the East. Do you think they got a shot at it, and does it even matter?
So with the way the OG's playing now, I feel like they absolutely do. I think the narrative around them all season has been who's gonna step up and help Cooper Flag, who's gonna give him help, and it seems like they've finally found ways to do that and get him help that he needs. Saturday night, he got it from Ogaskis, and he got it from Jay Laster, and he got it from Kamari Ward. It seems like those are the other two that are helping out Cooper Flag. So I do think they can catch them. Will it matter though? Right now I don't think so. I think Beasts of the East are still that team to beat overall. I'm not saying it just because they're the defending champs from last season either. They look really good still. So I do think that they're still the team to beat in that region and just in general going into race to 1.
So they're 1 game back, the OGs are, of Beasts, and that puts them a half game back of Philadelphia. And here's a fun little game that we're going to get to watch for the rest of the season as we are approaching the 30-game mark. We've got, 2 months of full season left here.